For USCFootball.com, I'm Nicole Sheeran here with Ryan Abraham after the fourth practice of spring football and the second practice in pads. So, Ryan, what are your initial thoughts after today?
Yeah, we didn't get to see the first full pads practice on Saturday because it was closed to the media, and we got to see a little bit of this one today. Actually, a lot less than what we got to see in last week, but you did get to see the guys with full pads out there. They had yellow, the yellow pants on, so the quarterbacks sort of looked like bananas out there because they had the yellow jerseys and the yellow pants. To see like Caleb Williams and Miller Moss and those guys, but it looked like a real team. So this was like the first time we got to see them. Like, yeah, this looks like they could go out there and play a game. We saw a full officiating crew out there too. Like they were like in bright, just pressed uniforms and everything. So I'm not sure why they had officials and stuff out there. I guess for the physical contact, calling some plays and calling some flags and stuff. But yeah, it was interesting to see the full pad stuff. The guys, it's different when you're in the locker room and you open the locker and there's like, oh, you got all the pads in there. It's like, okay, this is gonna be a little bit different than when you just put a helmet on and a jersey and stuff. And just a lot of the guys we talked to, which we'll get into later, seem to be really excited about there's gonna be extra physicality because they get to go to the pads in practice. So it was good. Yeah, from what we get to see, it was good, and the attitude of the players were pretty good afterwards. It wasn't a day last week. It was offensive players today. We got to talk to like Caleb Williams, Miller Moss. Today was more of an offensive line focused kind of day. The pads are on, so it's just a little more physical day, I think.
No, exactly. It felt like we were almost walking into a game a little bit with the pads and everything happening. But Lincoln Riley, after practice, touched on the depth of this team, what he's looking for with, certain spots that they need to fill. What are your thoughts about what he had to say?
Yeah, so he was asked about, where do you need to add some depth? Because he talked last week about adding double-digit players. He doubled down on that this week, and he said pretty much any spot on the roster, there's no position group on the roster that was going to be, we couldn't add a guy there. They want to add guys. So he said we have 10 spots open, and I do a scholarship chart. That's about right. You can have up to 85. They're at probably 76, 75 right now. So it sounds like he wants to fill that up and get up to the 85. And he's talked about being a unique roster, but there's no position group. He said, sometimes they're really talented in groups, but there was no position group. They were like, if we could get a 5-star guy coming in, we wouldn't take him. So it sounds like he's getting the roster to where he wants it to be. He's trying to figure out what they have here right now, but this is still going to be a roster that's in flux. He talked about it before. He's not joking around about this. He's going to add players in the offseason. It's going to be another transfer portal wave after spring football.
So you talked about how today was really an offensive line kind of day with the pads and everything going on. We heard from a bunch of the guys on that. What did you see from the guys you talked to after practice?
So I got to ask Lincoln Riley a couple questions, and he only spoke for about 6 minutes. We only had a short time, but I got a couple of them in there, but both about the offensive line and, where they were. He was pleasantly surprised with the way they were coming along. You can't replace experience, and you've got guys like Andrew Voorhees and all. I mean, they've got so much experience on that roster, the Brett Nealons of the world, so many snaps, and I think that adds a layer to it. And I asked him, is it for the experienced guys, is there still a lot to learn? And he said, it's a very different system. And there was a follow-up about these guys. A lot of those veterans have had 4 different offensive line coaches. And Lincoln Riley made it clear this wasn't about bashing other coaches. He said, these guys have been coached up well, but you have to learn their system. You have to learn what they're doing. There's different things to do. And the offensive system's different in general. I got to talk to Cortland Ford, who's not been around as long as some of those other guys, but he likes it that you get to pull, you get pulling. There's a lot of pulling in this one. He's an athletic tackle out there. He gets to pull and run around and show his athleticism, but it's different. So it's kind of different for everybody, but for those veteran guys, they've been around a long time. There's just some new things to learn, but having that base of experience where they've been learning from other coaches, I think is going to help them.
Yeah, some of the things I noticed from some of them, the guys that I talked to after practice, is that Henson really lets these offensive linemen play to their abilities and test new things out. That seemed to be a pattern with what I was hearing. So how is that different from last season?
Yeah, I think, so I like listening to Josh Henson. Like offensive line coaches in general are usually pretty cool dudes. Offensive linemen are like a lot of times the smartest guys on the team. The offensive line coaches kind of be that way. And you always get to learn a lot from something like that. And I think his attitude seems to be coming through and trying to figuring out where the strengths are from his guys. And the good thing is he's got a lot of film to look at with some of the veteran guys that are on the roster. And, you talk to a Brett Neal. I know Andrew Voorhees is a guy that's been around a while. He talked about being really frustrated with what happened last year. And he had it's basically like he has a chip on his shoulder. He wants to come back and prove. There's a lot to prove still. So I think he's got a good mix of some young guys that we haven't seen a lot of. There's some guys like the Cortland Fords and Jonah Monheims of the world that show a lot of, that showed a lot of promise, but we didn't see of them a ton. They got to play some. And then the real veteran guys that have been around a while, Justin Dietrich has been around a long time. And being able to utilize all those different spots, plus any new guys you're going to be able to bring in. They're still after that, some 5-star talent, I guess you could say, in the recruiting class, and of course in the transfer portal. And so doing all of that and trying to incorporate everything, it seems like it's not the biggest, deepest room right now. They've had a bunch of guys that left into the transfer portal, but they do have a lot of experience left. So I think they're trying to figure out what's going to work best. And their top 5 or 6, 7 guys, I think, are going to be in a good spot right now. But they are all learning. The install of the offense we heard from Graham Harrell was in 3 days. They installed. That's not the case of what's going on here. So the offensive linemen, even though they're experienced, I think they're still going through this learning process. It's probably going to take a little while.
Yeah, so let's switch it over to another room, the wide receivers room. Let's talk about the new inside wide receivers coach. What do you have to say about what this squad is going to look like this season?
Yeah, so Luke Heward, Brock Heward, he's the Heward family up in Seattle, all the quarterbacks and stuff. So that's where he comes from, and he came as a quality control analyst, I believe, and then with the unfortunate passing of Dave Nickel, the inside wide receivers coach, longtime friend to Lincoln Riley, mentor. Lincoln Riley said, without his mentorship, he probably wouldn't be a college coach right now. So this is a weird situation for Luke Heward to come in, but it seems like he's relishing the opportunity. There's a lot of some cliches out of it. We talked to him about 4 minutes or so, but he really likes the room that he's working with and just trying to get these guys better every day. I asked about the camaraderie in that wide receiver room because you have guys that were here for a while. You have new guys that have come in, like a CJ Williams, and you have transfers that have come in, like Mario Williams from Oklahoma. And he said it's just like a group that it seems like they've been together for years and not like a bunch of pieces that have been added. So it seems like he likes the chemistry in that room. He's just getting out there. I mean, you come in as the interim coach like this and you're just kind of thrust in the situation. I think everything's going to be moving pretty fast, but he seemed to be enjoying what he was doing out there and kind of incorporating this room. It's not a really deep wide receiver room right now. They're probably going to add some pieces in the offseason, but there's some experience there. There's some guys that have a lot of potential, like the Kyle Fords of the world. They're former 5-stars and everything. We've seen Gary Bryant flash. There's a lot of guys that I think could flash, but no one really stepped up and replaced Drake London last year, and I think that's what they're kind of looking for. So they got a good mix. The Terrell Bynums of the world coming down from Washington, and I think you talked to Brendan Rice from Colorado. But it's a weird room because you have these guys from all over the place with experience,
No, exactly. And you brought up Brendan Rice. Something we talked about last time was after the first practice, the energy on that field was insane. And I spoke with Brendan Rice after practice today. That guy has the most energy out of anyone on this team. He said, I'm ready to play. I'm ready to go. He said once he gets out on that field, it's like vanilla ice cream for him, whatever that really means. But what do you think is the importance of having this energy to carry into this season for this team?
I think you want some guys. We've seen some pretty good leaders, but a lot of it was by example. I think there's going to be some more vocal leaders, and you don't have to be that vocal if Brendan Rice is just going to be out there happy as can be and just doing things. He doesn't have to be standing on a soapbox and yelling at guys. People are going to follow him hey, this is great. We heard from Caleb Williams last week. I mean, he just has the room in his hands when he's talking. A guy like Cortland Ford talking to him today, just a lot of energy. They were so excited. I asked about the team morale. It's just high. Everybody seems to be, it's a kind of be an infectious thing where you're kind of excited about what you're doing. Everyone feels like they're on the same page. Everyone feels like they're working towards a championship type of a goal. And I think that energizes everybody. So you hear it in Brendan Rice's voice and you hear it from Caleb Williams and all the different guys. So the energy, like we talked about last week, is really good. And I think when the pads come on, it kind of changes that even more. The guys are excited. Pads are popping, changes practice a little bit, and guys get a little more juiced up for that.
You heard Ryan, the pads are popping, okay? So what are your last thoughts after the 4th spring practice and 2nd in the pads?
Yeah, so I wish we could see more. It's tough, and they did cut it off a little closer. I mean, a little shorter than what we saw, but just those stretching individual periods. You can hear it from you can hear over on Howard Jones Field where you're walking out, and that's what I do miss. The pads popping, that kind of stuff. We're usually just in the media room for most of it. We come out in the end, and you can still hear the energy before they blow the horn. So we're listening for a little while, and it would be nice to be able to kind of see what's going on. But you could usually tell when Lincoln Riley comes out and what he's talking about. if he liked the energy in practice or not. He seemed like he did. The physicality. I know Josh Henson, the offensive line coach, didn't like the physicality day one. In full pads, it was more about they were trying to figure out the scheme. He wants them to be able to play fast and be physical, and I feel like they did a little bit more of that today. But I'm excited to see where we go from here. Defensive player is going to be later in the week, so we get to talk to those guys. But the offensive day was fun. It was a cool day because it was an offensive line day as opposed to like quarterbacks and stuff like that. So the offensive line, you need the big guys some love on a day when you're getting the full pads.
Exactly. Well, that's going to do it for Instant Analysis after the 4th spring practice. For Ryan Abraham, I'm Nicole Sheeran, and check out uscfootball.com for more.